Even if we do say so ourselves, we've filmed some lovely reactions to the call. It's become a bit of a tradition around about the end of July and beginning of August when every roebuck in Europe starts behaving like John Travolta in Greece. This year, Roy wants to film the roe rut from top to bottom and end to end. He wants to try and surpass everything we've done before and decides to head out on 4 different occasions during the rut to cover as much ground as possible. We're not looking to shoot everything in sight. Of course, he wants to take a few animals, but it's all about working the call, watching and learning.
So the rut's kicked off. I've spoken to a few friends and they said that the roe are really responding well to the call. And it's been really stormy and the storm has been building, but unfortunately it's now just broken and it is absolutely tipping down.
Our first outing is not ideal. Pouring rain, the first proper showers for weeks. But it's a good test. Rain is never thought of as a good thing for a stalker, so will it affect the bucks looking for love at this time of year? This evening we are joined by Mr. Crow, who has come along for the ride and looks very dapper in Roy's headgear. He doesn't use a call, so is interested to see it in action. Roy picks a spot and the call falls on deaf ears. We give it 10 minutes and move on. We're now getting soaked. Roy calls again. Nothing. So we start setting up the fox call, but then from the scrub out comes a buck. He stops on the call, but he's spotted us. Lesson number 1. It pays to be patient even when it's raining, and of course there's a blame game going on.
Perhaps if we'd continued and persevered a little bit, we would have had a little bit more of a successful outcome. So I'm blaming that one on Andy though. I'm sure he's jinxed us.
Why are you blaming me, bro?
Sorry? I can't believe you did that to me, mate. I mean,
why are you blaming me? I did say to you,
actually, it's did you really?
I said to you
sorry,
down
mate,
there,
I must have misheard that bit.
I said to you, let's squeak a bit longer. You never know if you've aroused something.
Does squeaking arouse them, you know?
It does.
Really?
Well, it rouses me, innit?
We try calling a fox, but nothing, so to finish off we decide to give Jordan a heart attack.
We've got an elephant call on here. I'm just going to play it as soon as he tries to grab it now. That's not fair, he didn't jump.
Jordan, too cool for school there. We soon give up, just like the camera, and wait for better weather. 5 days later we're in Hampshire and it's going to be speed stalking. Well, Roy's version.
Day 2 filming on the roebuck rut. We've got a couple of thousand acres to get around as quickly as we can, so we're going to go to likely looking spots where hopefully there might be some roe couched up and just see if we can get some behaviour happening in front of us.
Our first deer sighting is a doe grazing near the browse line Roy had spotted earlier. She doesn't clock us in the crop. Undisturbed, she disappears back into the wood only to reappear with this chap behind her. It's the big buck Roy has been leaving alone.
So that's the big boy. He's got his nose right up her behind, so the chances of coming and him calling off are quite slim.
We venture into the wood and try a few more tricks to stir up a response. Roy finds the inner gorilla shaking foliage and even the inner raging bull with a bit of ground pawing. The local bucks are clearly intimidated and don't break cover, but our luck is about to change. A buck is feeding a couple of 100 yards away beyond the maze.
If we call from here and he does respond, he's going to disappear into the maze, and the chances are he'll see us before we see him. So I'm going to go around that way, come up on him, give it a call. It doesn't look like he's with a doe, so hopefully we might be able to get him to play.
What a reaction, and just what we'd hoped for.
That couldn't have worked out any better. So, he came beautifully in there. So, just a few peeps. You could see that he wasn't on a doe, and where he wasn't following, that just got a perfect response, and he came in like a train. That is a very nice representative 6-pointer. So, yeah, very happy with that one. I would have preferred actually to have taken something a bit younger. Not quite as nice, but he's not got that strong a head, but he is a very nice representative buck. You can tell by his neck, he's got a good thick neck on him, nice shoulders on him, so he certainly wasn't a young animal, but yeah, a good middle-aged buck. He is beautiful, absolutely stunning.
With buck granics and in the back of the truck, we're off calling again. This time it's a doe that reacts.
So chances are there may be a buck around here, but it's going to be quite interesting with the doe just standing there so we can see her before we start calling and just see what sort of response they get.
She heads into the cover, then reappears a minute later. With the butterlow call clearly working, we ask Roy to run through his technique.
When we're calling, I always follow the instructions that I got from a guy that used to take me out when I was a lot younger, row stalking, John Tobin. He always taught me that when you're using the call, it should be like a heartbeat, so just a regular rhythmic heartbeat to start off with, so just a just stop for a little while, watch, give it a couple of minutes and go again, and just run through the calls like that. Obviously that heart rate is one that where you haven't seen a buck. When you tend to see a deer coming in, then it all of a sudden increases, but that call will very often bring does in. The reason for that is because it's mimicking the sound of the row kids. So if they've lost their mum, then they're just calling out. And if there's a buck with them, very often the buck will come in as well. You can then up the ante and start increasing the intensity of the call, as if it's a doe being chased by a buck. Often that will bring the territorial buck out, because he thinks that somebody else is playing with his girlfriend and on his territory. And then when you get to the end, which is a little bit of a distress call, so as if a deer is being hounded a little bit more, and very often that will just spark them if you haven't had anything. So if they've been rutting hard and they're couched up, if there's a buck laying around, sometimes that will bring them in or just spark them a little bit when there's nothing going on.
Our next success is again with a doe feeding near a wood, which is supposed to be our next stop. Roy gets her attention. She spots us and charges into the wood barking. Not ideal. Our last call of the day is another long-distance response. A doe comes hurtling up the side of the crop, stopping within 12 yards of Roy. Running Rodo, crouching Lupton.
Every year it just takes my breath away, and I think that's what keeps driving us to do what we do, because it's not just about the hunting, it's about the appreciation for wildlife, it's about the appreciation for the countryside, and it's about the appreciation of understanding exactly what's going on and admiring the quarry. Every time you get one coming in, it sends tingles down your spine, gets the hair standing up on the back of the neck. It is just beautiful.
Row stalking, take 3, and we're back where we started. It is not raining, it is scorching, which may mean it's too hot for the road to be feeling amorous, and the rut might become nocturnal. Roy is also feeling the heat.
I'm pretty sure I resemble an overstuffed sausage on a barbecue at the moment, but the plan at the moment is I want to spot the buck before we try and call him, because in this maze, if we try and call him, it could very easily come round on us and get our wind without us even knowing and disappear. So we're just going to wait it out before we start making any noise and hopefully spot them. As it's cooling down, I'm hoping they're going to come out onto the open parts, open margins, and start feeding.
An hour and a half passes and the light is dropping fast. Finally, Roy spots the buck with a doe, and we need to work our way in. It means a crawl. Roy can't get a clean shot because of the long grass. We manoeuvre, and eventually the buck turns broadside. It runs but drops 20 yards away.
I was just waiting for him to turn broadside before I could squeeze the shot, and he eventually gave us the opportunity. But as you can see, boy, that is one hot evening.
Roy is happy, but clearly a hot man. So, buck number 2, but not the spectacle we have come to expect. Our last excursion brings with it a guest appearance. Row calling guru John Tobin taught Roy everything he knows. We haven't filmed John for 4 years. He appeared in one of our first ever programmes, bringing you responses like this.
Why they're off rutting.
Tonight he is behind the call again. It's our last hurrah, and it is not going well. In fact, we see nothing. Has the rut stopped? Probably not, as this is the result our friend Keith had on the same ground. A disappointing end, but Roy can at least ask John a few questions about our experiences over the last few days.
One of the things I always struggle with is if you've got a buck with a doe, is trying to get either, you know, the doe to come in or the buck to move in, so, or leave the doe. What would you advise for that?
We all learnt in nightclubs that a certainty is better than a maybe, and that's what you're trying to do. I tend to use what I feel is the distress call. That normally gets some form of reaction.
Can you give us a quick spin on that?
Well, we can give it a go. It's something like that, and just be persistent. You almost nag it
into responding.
Into responding.
And do you pay much attention to the wind in the rut?
No, I don't pay any attention to it at all. I don't think it makes any difference.
You think you can really,
Yeah, you can take liberties with the wind.
That's it, we need to find someone to take some liberties with. But...
That's it.
So we end with some of Tobin's top tips. To hear more from John, click on the link to our film with him in 2009. It's been a fascinating few days, and I hope the row have been giving you wonderful wildlife moments over the past weeks too.